Kia ora e te iwi and welcome to The Verdict. Today we're talking all things rugby, we're talking red cards and Ian Foster v Dave Rennie. It's going to be really interesting. Before we kick it off though, let me introduce you to our debating duo today. First up, Sky Sport presenter Goran Paladin.
G'day Rav, yeah, I haven't left. I've been here for about a week now. So
And that locker behind you.
Yeah, this actually doubles as a bed. There's like a roll-out mattress, so I just sleep on that, tuck it away, here I am.
And former All Black Mils Muliaina.
Kia ora talofa.
Kia ora.
Good to be back. Good to be back. I'm very well. I can see you've been here the whole week.
Yeah,
You're trying to intimidating me with your notes.
Yeah, that's the way I operate.
It's already begun.
All about intimidation.
Okay, before we get into those cases today, I feel the need that every week I need to give the instructions on how this will work.
Go for it.
So you will both be given a quick, swift opportunity to plead your cases. You will then dive in a little bit deeper with your evidence after the fact. If you do want to respond to each other's comments, you can do so, but we just have to be wary of time. Kei te pai.
Cool.
Okay.
Understand.
So case one, as I mentioned, red cards. Say no more. Red cards, do they need the red card? Mills, we'll start with you.
Well, yes, they absolutely do. I don't care whether you red carded or black carded or whatever, they need to be gone. And it's absolutely ruining the game. There's no transparency between the referees, and you know the punishment doesn't really fit the crime. So there's so much inconsistency. It's not funny. I think the red cards need to go. Needs to go. Absolutely.
Well, okay, he's passionate.
Very strong argument.
All right, look, I'm going to say, Rav, that getting rid of the red card would mean that the game of rugby would be a very scary place to live. I certainly wouldn't want to play it because all of a sudden there's no deterrent for foul play. And I'm going to argue today that the game of rugby and the way that it's been officiated, it's moved on, and I think people need to realise that and just accept that this is what we're dealing with today.
Okay, well, this is going to get interesting, boys. Two very differing opinions. Mills, we'll start with what have you got to bring to the table?
Okay, so there's two things here. Let's look at that thing, and I spoke about it before, the fact that there's no transparency. The punishment does not fit the crime. Okay, so we've got all this. Let's pick on the high tackles in the weekend. Okay, absolutely ref to the law. You know, if it hit someone across the chin. Yeah, the problem you've got with that, there's so many mitigating factors. And what are those mitigating factors? I mean, one of them is whether the referee thinks there's malice in it. So how can you actually judge from one referee to another where there is malice in a high tackle? So, and then you look at the fact that, you know, a prop, okay, you've got a prop that's sort of, you know, done, you know, obviously being red carded, but Akira Ioane gets taken off to be replaced by another prop. So how is that fair? On top of that, it actually just, what it does, it just changes the whole context of the game. So 20 minutes into it, all of a sudden, the game's gone. Okay, so you're thinking red card, and then lay down the track, you know, the Australian guy does it, and it almost feels like the referee has to sort of double up to say, well, I had to give that red card, so maybe I'll better give this red card to try and even things up a little bit. My argument is, why couldn't World Rugby adopt what we had in Super Rugby Aotearoa, where you said, okay, if it's a red card offence, you go off for 20 minutes, okay, then you're replaced. You're not allowed to come back on, but if it's a red card offence, you go off for 20 minutes, someone else comes on and plays, you've still got 15 on 15. It doesn't ruin the game. As soon as you have someone going off for a misdemeanour that we don't even know what it's for, the referees don't come out and say, well, this is the reasons why. There was no mitigating factor. There's a mitigating factor in that first one that offered it. You know, the guy was actually falling down.
Nick Berry said he wasn't.
Exactly. And so because
he wasn't.
There's a non-transparency in it.
He wasn't falling.
Nick Berry said he wasn't, but another referee, which I won't name, would think, well, no, actually, he was actually falling down.
Oh, go on, name him.
I'm not going to name him. I don't name my sources. But what I'm saying,
live.
Back to my point.
Investigative journalist.
I think it's absolutely ruining the game. It's ruining the flow of the game, and it's the last thing we want to be talking about after, you know, what has been a fantastic competition, a fantastic game in the weekend. And here we are sitting here talking about red cards, and really we should be sitting here talking about a report system. You know, it's gone on report. You've been fined, or you've been, you know, stood down for this long. I just think it needs to go.
What we need here is a reset of the way that everybody views the red card. Previously to, I don't know, maybe 2010, a red card was for like someone punching somebody in the face or a terrible spear tackle, right? Someone landing on their head. In 2020, That's not what a red card is about, Rav. It's all about protecting the player, protecting their head. I mean, geez, you played with a guy called Steve Devine, right? Copped a number of head knocks, and look at his quality of life now. I'm sure he would say that his quality of life has diminished since his rugby playing days. Why? Because he copped a bunch of head knocks, and doctors and medical professionals didn't know how to treat him. So all I'm saying is, we need to rethink and reset as a rugby viewing public what a red card is, and that's what World Rugby has done. You're saying that it's unclear as to what is and is not a red card. All you need to do is go on the World Rugby website. There's a really good video and a list of instructions around what they call their decision-making framework, and they look at it one by one, piece by piece. The action that takes place, is it a shoulder charge or is it a high tackle? And it's all to do with the positioning of the arm. Is it in front of the body? Is it behind the body? Is the arm in the sling position? Once they've determined that it's a shoulder charge, then is the shoulder into the chest? Is it into the neck? Is it into the chin of the opposing player? It's all very clear and all set out like that. So, when I sit there after the game, after Bledisloe 4, and I'm watching, you sit alongside Christian Cullen and Sir John Kerwin, and they're saying the red card's got to go. That's not a red card. Look at the rules, and you'll realise that yes, it is a red card, and it's all about protecting players so they're not dribbling all over themselves when they retire.
Okay, so when you say that, okay, let's look at a high ball catch. If you're going to protect someone in the air, and they've been red carded, guys for a long time.
Yeah.
Why then didn't someone get red carded in Bledisloe 3? That should have been a red card.
Yeah, should have been.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's the whole non-transparency I'm talking about. That no one actually knows what's going on. If you're going to take someone out in the air, regardless whether it's an honest mistake or you're looking up at the ball, this is what I'm talking about. If you're looking up at the ball and you bump someone, well, effectively that should be a red card. Why can't we just take a breath and say, oh, hold on, let's have a quick look, okay, while actually. Because we haven't got a red card system, let's put it on report. But you're going to spend 10 minutes in the sin bin. That doesn't ruin the game. You're going to get penalised for that action. There's no sitting there going, oh, actually, let's look at it again. He fell on his ankle. Oh no, he fell on his head. Well, maybe that's a red card. No, actually, he fell on his ass. Okay, well, maybe I'm just going to give a penalty. That's where the uncertainty comes from. I know we're talking about a head high tackle, but then. For things, even like you're talking about, the thuggery. Like, I totally agree. Guys should be, sent off for that or red carded. But spend 20 minutes and being sent off, and you're not allowed to come back on. Don't ruin the whole game by taking, one, stupid mistake, or a guy that's made a stupid mistake, and then saying, well, for the next 70 minutes, you guys are going to play, it's going to be 14 on 13, and then another guy does the same thing, or, let's just say it was a head high tackle, or for Tuangafasi got done for a head high tackle. And then Geordie Barrett takes someone out in the air. Well, there's another red card because effectively the law says it's a red card. Then someone else does something. Well, you could end up in playing 15 on 10. I mean, what sort of test match do you want then? That's why my argument is about the fact that we should get rid of it. Spend 20 minutes off. Instead, World Rugby spending most of their time figuring out changing a rule that you can't score on the posts. I mean, that's not protecting anyone. It's protecting the post.
Mills, my worry about that, if you remove a red card and you only spend 20 minutes on the sideline max, and then you replace that player, let's just say there's a World Cup final tomorrow, and you've got New Zealand against Australia. Let's put those teams together because they were facing off at the weekend. What's to stop the Australians from basically burning a player and burning that player early, sending him out there with a directive to take out one of the All Blacks' best players with a terrible shot? Hey, slipper, get out there and smack Richie Mo'unga in the head.
Yeah.
Do it in the first minute, and then hopefully we can hold off the All Blacks for that time, and it gives us 60 minutes to try and figure a way out of this one. They'll be without one of their best playmakers. So I think, look, part of what you're saying, I believe, has merit. In terms of replacing a player, but there needs to be a deterrent, and that's what the red card is. To take it away, I think, would be detrimental to the game and to the safety of the players.
The one thing that I will side with you on, Mills, is the fact that something happened, red card, boom, done. And I think this is probably one of the only sports where there's no warnings, there's no, that's the action, and they're taken off the field straight away, which I side with Goran on because, you know, health and safety and well-being of the players should always be paramount. I think the biggest issue here is the human issue. You know, do you say that it was intentional? Was it reckless? Was it foul? And I think that's the difference here. And I think when it comes to a red card, if there's any malice in the act, then I think that it's, you know, makes for a very different story. I am going to side with Goran on this because I do agree with the word deterrent, and I do feel that if there is no red card laid out in the rule book, that we could be looking at a very different kind of rugby in the future.
Oh, this feels good. Any last words before we move on, Mils?
Oh, good luck playing 10 on 15 in the future.
When have you ever seen a rugby game 10 on 15?
I'll tell you that.
Seen a rugby
There's
game?
going to be a first. There's going to be a first.
It's coming.
5 red cards for one team.
And the team with 10 players will win.
Utterly ridiculous.
Stay away from that field, Goran.
Oh, man.
Okay, well, let's get into case 2, where we saw 2 Kiwi coaches going up against it in a great battle, Ian Foster v Dave Rennie. The question is, did Ian Foster lose the game or did Dave Rennie win that game? Goran, we'll start with you.
Okay, I preface what I'm about to say with this. I'm a huge Ian Foster fan. I'm not one of those people who goes,
No,
hey, I'm not one of those people who says, oh, he couldn't coach at the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Why is he the All Blacks coach? It's like, well, he's been involved in the All Blacks for 8 or 9 years now. And what, are we saying that a person can't grow and evolve over time? Of course he can.
Yeah.
Got a lot of time for Ian Foster. But on this occasion, Bledisloe 4, he lost that match through his selections, and I'll prove that.
Okay. Wells?
I'm like Goran. I've got nothing against Dave Rennie, nothing at all. I think he's a great coach. Everything like
Come on,
that.
guys.
But I'll tell you, he didn't win the game. I think they weren't efficient enough. Ian Foster did not lose the game for the All Blacks. I believe, you know, some of the players didn't actually stand up, and some of those top players didn't sort of execute the way he would have wanted it to. So we can't sit here after, you know, we've won the Bledisloe and talk about how Ian Foster lost us game. We've got to keep growing, you know, at the depth in our squad. So I think he did not lose that Bledisloe 4.
Okay. Who wants to take it away first?
He won the last one, mate. He won the last one.
All right.
Or winners start.
The selections meant that they turned around a 38-point loss from Bledisloe 3, the Aussies. I mean, that is just the perfect indicator, isn't it? To lose by 38 and then win by 2 the next week, within 7 days, surely that has Ian Foster written all over it with those selections. And Mils, you say, like, we need to test depth and get new players in, and they brought in 4 debutants in Bledisloe 4. Like, why 4? Just sort of like eke them in slowly. The terminology that Fozzie used was we've locked away the Bledisloe, and now this is a reset, and we're going to go again in the Tri-Nations. Well, unfortunately, Game 4 of the Bledisloe was only Game 2 of the Tri-Nations. And it was way too early to start making those wholesale changes. I mean, the backline looked completely different. You know, you had Anton Leonard-Brown and maybe Geordie Barrett playing in a different position. They were the only guys who survived from the third Bledisloe. So, look, for those reasons, I think that, this is on Ian Foster.
Okay.
Cool. So we constantly hear the fact that they're in a professional outfit. You're a professional, you know, and professionalism's kicked in. And these players that you've built a big squad on have got to go out there, and the expectation is that you carry on what the guys that done the week before had sort of done. You know, their level has got to step up. Now this is where you've got to grow combinations, and I honestly believe they would have went out there with the game. But yes, it was a messy game. You know, there's no doubt about this. Red cards, yellow cards, and they didn't quite get the flow on. Now, if we're not going to be able to test our depth, we'll never get anywhere. You know, you can't train pressure. You know, and this is what these guys are under. And the biggest concern from the weekend for me is that top players that have been there for a long time didn't really step up. They made, you know, errors that they wouldn't have made. There was a loose ball. There was no consistency in their play. Now, you know, you've got to breed these guys, some of these new guys. You know, the debutants you're talking about. If there's one probably fault, I would have probably, in terms of the selection, I probably would have put a bit more onus on the bench, being a little bit more experienced, as opposed to the guys that sort of came on to change that game. The other one also is, in terms of a coaching, sort of setup, is I would have brought, a guy like Brad Weber on earlier. The game wasn't going anywhere. You needed a spark. You needed someone to actually, create something, from nothing. And that's probably where Fozzie fell short. In terms of the whole game in itself, the players need to take responsibility for that, because they didn't execute the way that they should have. They didn't win the physical battle. They certainly said, the Bledisloe won. They said that, Australian had a different mindset. They came out and, they're up here in terms of the physicality. Well, they showed a similar thing. The other point of it was our kicking game. When you kick and you've got no chasers, there's a time there where, Beauden Barrett, obviously didn't execute, but Sevu Reece didn't chase, and then, the Australians, counter-attacked, and I think they ended up scoring about 9 phases later. Now, that's mindset. That's having time on the park to say, hey, I've got to be switched on at test match level every single time I go out. Fozzie, you can't just sit there and tell them. You can tell them until you go black and blue. But at the end of the day, the responsibility lies on the guys that are going out there. So if I'm talking long term, okay, we've won the Bledisloe. I don't even know what this Tri-Nation thing is all about, because Argentina is still sick. So it doesn't really matter. You've got to pick players. Exactly. So we've got to get guys out there to be to actually be in that pressure cooker. And so when you come to things like the Rugby World Cup, if we have 5 guys that fall over, they're expected to step up. You can't train that sort of pressure, on the training pitch. You've got to train it in game, and that's where you've got to back your squad. Now, we've got the luxury that we've got 2 teams, and I still stand by what I said last week. That this team that we put out there should have won, and should have won, easily by the skill set that they have. But they weren't together, and combinations weren't right. I mean, you look at a world-class player like Beauden Barrett. Now, that probably just justifies where his position is. He's a fullback as opposed to coming.
Well, here we go.
Fourth. You know what I mean? Timing aspect. So for me, the responsibility lies with the players, and Fozzie didn't lose us that test match, and they should be responding this week.
Just before we wrap, because I think we're probably running out of time, Rav, but I wanted to take us back to the original question that Rav posed. Did Dave Rennie win this one, or did Ian Foster lose it? And I want to take you back to comments made by Ian Foster in the post-match. I think it was the next day. So he'd had a day to think about what had happened. Yep. The quote was, "I didn't see a massive difference in the Wallabies, to be honest, from Bledisloe 3 to Bledisloe 4. So in that, I say it's got to be Ian Foster who cost them that 4th Bledisloe.
Okay. Fozzie rang me after that, and he didn't see a difference at all. What he did see was a difference in the All Blacks execution-wise from the game plan that he wanted them to go out and implement.
Deviated.
You're clutching at straws, Mills. I think I've got this one, mate.
I better ring him. You've got to win after that. You've got to win after that quote.
I'll save it to last.
It's out of context. Don't even bring that quote up.
That's a great finish.
This is great production, isn't it, Rav? I had that ace up my sleeve.
Look.
Don't let that influence you. Do not let that
I'm
influence.
actually
it's
not
off the
going
table.
to.
We're taking it off the table.
I'm not going to let that influence me. I actually do agree with Mills on this.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I do.
That's it. I'm leaving. I'm taking my microphone.
I think it is important to grow depth. And when you're thinking about Rugby World Cups and things like that, when it's games after games after games, and you've got a new coach and you are looking for that depth, game time is the only way you're going to learn. You will not, you can train against each other till the cows come home, but if you don't have that game time in those massive moments, in those massive stadiums, with the cameras, with the crowds, with the skeptics, I don't think you'll really get the experience that you need to succeed later on down the track. I also, I don't know if you guys heard the question, but did Dave Rennie win? I feel he did. I feel he played his cards right, and what I saw was a Wallabies team playing for their coach. I feel like, this is only the beginning for them and the culture, and I think was a couple of chats back we spoke about this hill that Dave Rennie's going to have to climb, and I think this weekend just gone, he proved that he's climbing it pretty well.
Wait, so I lost?
You lost.
I can't believe that.
Sorry.
Well done, Mils. Great job. Great job. I thought that was unlosable. Like Bledisloe 4 for the All Blacks. I thought it was unlosable. Somehow I've lost that.
See, mate, you'll learn from those, mate. Just like Ian Foster will, mate. Now he'll
It's
have
the
to learn
experience
from
you've got from this, Goran.
Well, next week we'll sub in somebody else. Sam Harris will come and sit in here. Yeah. Oh, I'm tired, guys. I've been going so hard for so long in the studio. I need a breather.
Have a break, mate. I don't feel sorry for you. I still won that last one.
Yeah, all right.
And remember at home, if you have anything you'd like to say about these case files today, please don't hesitate to comment away, just like our gentlemen have here today. For our case files, they are now closed. Okay. Well argued. Those are very great arguments today.
It was nice to be here arguing with you, Mils.
Yeah.
You got one, Goran. Come on.
Yeah, it's 1-1. That's fine. Yeah. Next week, the decider.
I felt like you put much more effort into the second one.
I'll tell you what, his notes are getting longer.
Yeah. Pretty soon I'll take up the entire desk.
I'll bring old A4 lot and that photocopied paper. So. The briefcase as well, like the lawyers do.
The old file effects, just put it down. Concertina file. Yeah.
That's right. Well, we've got to do it properly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, not with the All Blacks, but have you ever been sent off?
No, I've never had a red card. I've had one yellow card. When I was captaining the Chiefs and down in Invercargill, and it was for repeated offences. So it wasn't really my yellow card; it was a team yellow card. So I went over the ball, which was probably the first time I ever tried to win a.
What were you thinking?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it wasn't close to our line; it was way sort of near the halfway mark. So I thought, I better have a crack because it was a long way to get back at fullback. So why not have a little wee rest? I ended up getting 10 minutes anyway. It's big enough.
Yeah, there's your rest.
What's the feeling like when you get the card and you're given your marching orders? Like, what are you thinking in your head in that moment?
Well, at the time, I think it was Vinnie Munro, the referee. I mean, he's actually a good man, had a good relationship.
I think it was Vinnie Munro. Like, you've hung on to this for years.
So I just laughed.
I think it was.
I just laughed at it. It all depends, I suppose, on what the score is.
Yeah.
You know, and at the time, I think we were leading against the Highlanders. But at the time you sit down, you just kind of think, oh, please don't score any more points while you're off. But that's the only time I've been yellow carded or sort of sent off, and so it wasn't really a biggie for me. I'd hate to think if you're a sort of repeated offender that what sort of that would look like, and also going to the judicial the following day, that would be massive. I've actually been to one as a captain to just try and sit there in South Africa for support. And Ian Foster was the coach. He was actually going in there to I suppose, plead Ben May's point, and. It's a different system. You actually like just one guy sitting there sort of making a decision whether he liked you or not. So, but yeah, Ben ended up being suspended, which wasn't very good for our sort of case anyway.
Well, it's going to be a big night for old mate tonight as well when the decision comes in for Ufa.
Yeah.
Back to Argentina, they're playing this weekend. What makes them different from other opposition, and we'll use Wallabies obviously as in contrast?
Yeah, well, the thing is, the physicality they bring, it's especially around their sort of, tight five and then onto their loosies. They're very big men. They love getting it, sort of that contact. There's guys that are big and strong, but they use a bit of footwork. Whereas the Argentinians, they just go nuts. And when you talk about nuts, it's that first sort of 10 to 20 minutes in the game where all they want to do is just go out there and just hit bodies, disrupt you as much as they can. Having played against them, that traditionally they used to be very good at scrum time. So that was a really big way for them to be able to get parity over the team. So they used to love scrummaging. With the South Africans, have probably moved on to that now. They've lost their way a little bit, and perhaps it's probably on the back end of playing Super Rugby as well, that they've sort of tried to open the game up a bit. And some of the outside backs, they've got some flair as well. So I'm expecting there's no hiding the fact they're going to be physical. They'll take it to the All Blacks, particularly up front, and after what they've seen in the weekend against the Wallabies, that if you can get into the All Blacks early, there's a great chance you can disrupt the momentum of their game and also the flow of their game. So the hardest part is they haven't played all year, right? And it's kind of like you sit there and go, man, what does it look like for them? Whether they've had players returning from overseas and things like that. The Rugby World Cup for them wasn't great, and that was probably due to the fact that they had all their players playing for the Hawaris. This is their top team week in, week out, and they ended up making the finals that year, I think, and then they were burnt out a little bit. So they tried to use that same team going forward, and when you got to the Rugby World Cup, they were just burnt out. And so that's probably a lesson in terms of, rotating their squad and where they get their players from as well. The biggest sort of unknown for this weekend is, what they're actually going to produce, because I think they've only had, one game together. So it's just hard to know what they've sort of got, and it'd be harder for the All Black coaches to try and understand the sort of different style than what they'll be wanting to play. So that's what I'm looking forward to this weekend.
Well, thank you so much, Mils, for joining us today, as always. And
Probably see you next week, mate.
Yeah, probably. Get your papers ready.
Yep.
As for Goran and I, we'll be back here again next week as well, putting everything in sport on trial. Mā te wā.